Without further ado, let's start with the first fight, the title fight. We have Josh Warrington. He is back. Leeds boy, everyone loves him. And my God, does he get a following in the Leeds Stadium. So it's going to be a really epic night. Also, if it begins at 2, then yeah, it's going to be crazy. Now, he is IBF featherweight champion, sorry I can't speak, and he is facing his mandatory challenger, who is Alberto Lopez from Mexico. So let's chat about Josh Warrington first. He is 32. He has had 31 wins, 1 loss and 1 draw. He is 2 times world featherweight champion. So he won it the first time back in 2018, and then he won it for the second time, which is actually in March 21. Now, let's talk about his losses, because that's probably the most important thing, because they're relatively recent. Now, his loss was to Mauricio Lara, and that was in February 2021. And basically, I think Josh Warrington just massively underestimated the Mexican, and he got a TKO in round 7. Now, there was a rematch, which is the draw. So the rematch happened. Actually, Josh Warrington was way more aggressive this time, may well have won. However, there was a head clash, so it was deemed a draw. Now, we haven't had another rematch to actually settle that, but instead, Josh Warrington faced Kiko Martinez, who we saw destroy Jordan Gill a couple of weeks ago, and he got his belt back then. So he did beat Kiko Martinez then. So that was the last fight. And in that fight with Kiko Martinez, Josh Warrington actually broke his jaw. So this fight is the first one since that jaw break. So I don't know what that's going to do to his confidence. Hopefully he's back. But he's back facing another Mexican who is also relatively unknown. So let's hope he doesn't make the same mistake of underestimating him like he did for Mauricio Lara. So a bit more about Josh Warrington. He is the first boxer from Leeds to win a major title, which is pretty cool, probably why he's loved so much. He's a really great technical boxer. He has quite a cool story as well. He left school at 16 and he was a dental technician. And he actually has the little nickname, which is the boxing tooth fairy. And it's because he essentially worked as a boxing technician simultaneously whilst training and actually being a pro boxer. So he's trained by his dad, who also had absolutely no experience in boxing at all whatsoever. They worked together to become what they are now. He even promoted himself from when he was 19 years old up to 23 years old. And he would be fighting journeymen in leisure centres while still a dental technician. In fact, he didn't stop working as a dental technician until he won the European title. So he really did juggle for quite a while. Now, he really wants a massive fight in the US. He needs to win this, I would say. If he does, he'll probably get those big fights, and he'll probably be able to unify the division. That's what he wants. That's what he's going for. He also wants the big paydays as well. He said quite openly he's got a sister who's got autism and a brother with special needs, and he wants to be able to financially support them. So therefore, he really is doing his best to make it to the top. Josh Warrington is a really technical, brilliant fighter, and also he's really entertaining. That's why he's got so many fans. And this will be a great fight. Now, let's go on to his opponent. So Alberto Lopez, he's 29. As I said, he's from Mexico. Relatively unknown, but you can find out stuff about him. You can watch his previous fights on YouTube. Now, he's a mandatory challenger, so obviously he's worked his way up. He was the WBO featherweight international champion. That was back in 2019. Now, he's got 2 losses on his board. So we've got 26 wins, 2 losses, 15 of which were KOs. So he's actually had a 9-fight winning streak. So he's coming in really, really strong. His last fight was in August, and he managed to get a 2nd round TKO. And that was against a guy called Jason Vargas. If you watch that one, there's some really great body shots, which he also did against his fight, which was 2 previous to that, against Isaac Lowe, who we actually saw on the Fury Chisora card last week. Again, a lot of body shots, really fast, strange combinations, quite unpredictable. I think he'll give him a good fight, actually. He's come forward and he said, look, I'm going to go for strength, I'm going to go for speed, I'm going to shock him. He's got a great reach as well. So I have to say, this is one to watch, and it's not like Josh Warrington is the big fat favourite. If you look at the odds, it's actually pretty close. I mean, Josh Warrington just about gets better odds, but no one has written off Louis Alberto Lopez. So I think we're in for a good fight, a really good fight. And something else which is quite interesting, I thought, was that Louis Alberto Lopez has also said that he thinks Josh Warrington is a bit of a dirty fighter. And Maurizio Lara and Kiko Martinez have also said the same thing, that sometimes, you know, are the head clashes on purpose? There's a lot of low blows going on. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Put it in the comments. You know, do you think he's a dirty fighter or not? I mean, whatever you think, he brings the crowd, he brings the show, he brings the entertainment. So no matter what, it's going to be great. Tune in. Let's go on to the next fight. This is the fight that I'm most excited about. We have Ebanie Bridges, and she is facing Shannon O'Connell. We've got Australia versus Australia. I really like Ebanie Bridges. She's fun. There are loads of reasons why. I'm going to tell you why. So she's 36. She is the current IBF bantamweight world champion. She has had 8 wins. So 9 fights because there was 1 loss. That 1 loss was to Shannon Courtenay, who interestingly is further down this card today, making a comeback fight. So I'll talk about her later on. Now, Ebanie won the world title in March of this year against Maria Cecilia Roman, who we've seen quite a few times on cards this year. She won that via unanimous decision. Every time I see Ebanie Bridges, she gets better. So even if you go on YouTube and you watch her fights, she's more technical, more powerful. Her footwork's better. Everything's better. Everything is better every time. So I'm excited about Ebanie because I've watched her grow and I can't wait to see what more she brings. She has a cool story. She began with karate when she was 5 years old, and she actually competed in karate in Australia until she was 13. After that, when she was in secondary school, she went into kickboxing and Muay Thai. Now, boxing for women in Australia was illegal back then. So she didn't do any boxing at all. And when it came to choosing a career, she wasn't a boxer. Obviously, she couldn't. So she went into bodybuilding. And she was really good at it. If you look at some photographs of her as a bodybuilder, it's absolutely epic. It's just amazing. Now, when she was deep into that career, boxing for women did become legal in Australia, but she was being really successful at bodybuilding, so didn't come to it until 2016. In 2016 to 2018, she went into boxing. She became an amateur. She had 30 fights. She won 26 of them. She also won 2 national golden gloves. So she really was very good very quickly, even though she came to it quite late. And she went pro in 2019. She actually, in her very first fight, she broke her ankle in her first fight, but she carried on and she fought on. And I think that actually gives you quite a good idea as to what kind of fighter Ebanie Bridges is. A bit of a brawler. She goes for it. She keeps going. It's absolute determination. Now, there is a lot of hate between her opponent for tomorrow night, Shannon O'Connell. Shannon O'Connell has told her she's trash, told her that she dresses like a stripper. In fact, she's seen better looking strippers than Ebanie Bridges. Now, if you don't know Ebanie Bridges, it's probably the first photo you'll find when you Google her. Like, she comes to weigh-ins not just wearing your stereotypical underwear to get on the scale. She dresses up. She wears lovely lingerie, covered in makeup. I think it's great. One of the reasons why I like Ebanie Bridges a lot is because she showed that women could be boxers and they could be really feminine. They could be really beautiful. And I think that's a great thing. Why can't, you have role models that say, yeah, you know what, you can be really tough, you can get in a ring, you can fight, but also you can look nice. And that's great. Why not? But Shannon O'Connell's got a big problem with that. In fact, quite a lot of people have a bit of a problem with it, and say that Ebanie Bridges takes it too far and she looks too slutty, blah, blah, blah. So she's controversial, but who cares? That's fun. So she's a really come forward fighter as well. Very durable, often gets a points win. I think she will win this fight on points. That's just my opinion. She is favourite to win. However, let's not overlook her opponent, Shannon O'Connell. She's 39, a little bit older, 26 wins, 6 losses and 1 draw. Now, she is the mandatory challenger for this belt. She's number 2 from the WBA and she's number 4 for the WBC. So she really has worked her way up. She also held the featherweight title in 2013, so quite a while ago, but still really decent boxer. Now, she's from Australia as well, like I said. She's relatively well known in Australia. She's known as the queen of boxing. Less so over here. She's only just signed with a bigger promotional company. So, under the radar, has gone through a lot of hard graft to get where she is right now. Like I said, hates Ebanie. She's got 2 children, a 15-year-old girl and a 16-year-old boy, and she always says, like, I don't want my children to be inspired. I think it's a really bad role model to have as Ebanie Bridges. She doesn't like it at all. Shannon's story into boxing is actually quite a sad one. Her dad was a racing car driver, and he passed away in a crash when she was only 2 years old. Now, the knock-on effect from that was that her mum went into depression and became a drug addict, and she actually took her own life when Shannon was 18 years old. Now, Shannon couldn't cope with this, and she started to go down that same path in her own grief. And she started doing things that, you know, people were like, you're gonna end up like your mum. They were trying to save her. Luckily, she got an injury in netball and went to a boxing club to try and keep fit whilst that was happening, or to try and help with her injury, and fell in love with it. It gave her discipline, it gave her a path, it took her away from the lifestyle, from any of the addiction that she was suffering before. She went into being an amateur. She had 50 fights. She went pro in 2011. She has a really lovely relationship with her trainer, Luke Meldon. And she has said in stories how she used to fight for literally, she worked out, she was earning like 20 cents an hour or something because of the little money and the amount of money and the amount of time she was putting into it. But she did it because she loved it so much, and her trainer was on board completely. So this is a really, really great platform for her. I'm really glad that she's here, and I think that she's going to put on a really good show. She might upset things. I think she might, because she's also a really comfortable fighter. You know, this will be a real, you know, right from that first bell, we're going to see some action. So yeah, I'm excited about this one. So that is our supporting fights. That's Ebanie Bridges and Shannon O'Connell for the IBF Bantamweight World Championship title. Okay, so now let's move on to the next fight. And this is Felix Cash, and he is facing Celso Neves. So the 3 fights that I'm talking about now, they're the ones that will begin at 9 p.m. after the football, just so you know when you want to tune in. Felix Cash, so he is the current WBC International Middleweight Champion. He's a really epic fighter. He's 15-0 and he's had 10 KOs. I mean, look at any of his fights on YouTube. He's got such power and accuracy. He's really spiteful. He's a really great fighter, but he's been very inactive, if you like. We haven't seen much of him. So he has worked his way through the titles as well. He won the British title. He also won the Commonwealth title. As an amateur, he won silver at nationals. He also spent 3 years in Team GB, but he missed out on the Olympics because he had a lot of injuries. So he's had quite a lot of bad luck, really, in his career. He went pro in 2016, and he's from a really big fighting family. So his dad and his uncle were boxers, and they're also bare knuckle fighters. So he's just kind of been brought up with it. He began when he was 9. He went to a boxing club with his 2 brothers. So it's just something they all do. Why has he been inactive? This is because he was on quite a lot of cancelled cards. So he was also supposed to be on the what's his name? Eubank Ben card, the one that went completely wrong. He was supposed to be there, and if you actually look, his last 2 fights, although he won them, they were 10 months apart. So it's been a long time. So people are actually calling this kind of like a comeback fight for Felix Cash, even though he didn't really go anywhere, and he never lost anything. You know, he's still just as powerful as he was, and let's hope that that big area of inactivity hasn't harmed him. So I'm excited to see him back. So like I said, he's really entertaining. He is facing Celso Neves, who is 32, and he is from Portugal. He has had 9 wins and 2 losses. Now, his last fight was in May. That was a draw, so it was a draw as well. However, he fought just 1 month before that as well, in April, and he won that by unanimous decision. Now, he's been super active. So obviously, he hasn't had opponents as big as Felix Cash had, I would argue. But I don't know, there's something about, okay, he's been in the ring a lot, and, you know, he's ready for it. So I think that would be a great fight. So tune in. Now, I'm going to flash now to the bit that's going to start at 2 p.m. So also, I want to say who's opening the show. I just want to do a little shout out. Haven't got a picture of her. Should have got one, sorry. To Rhiannon Dixon. Now, she is 6-0. She's a lightweight. She is a southpaw and she's coming back from an injury, but she's very, very much a prospect. So tune in right at the beginning. I mean, hardly anyone knows her name right now, but in 2023, I'm gonna put my money on it, that she's going to make some moves. I think she's going to upset that division, and we know that's a stacked division for women, so I think that's exciting. So look out for her. Rhiannon Dixon, she'll be starting the show at 2. So now let's go on to the next fight that I'm going to chat about. 2 fabulous fighters. We've got Shannon Courtenay, and she is against Gemma Rueg. Okay, cool. So Shannon Courtenay, we haven't seen her for a long time. I'm going to tell you why. When I did my first show with Talkin Fight, I talked a little bit about Shannon. I'll tell you more about it today. She was also supposed to be on the Ben Eubank card, but obviously that got cancelled, which was really annoying because this is her comeback fight. This is the big deal. She is 29. She has had 7 wins. She has had 2 losses, and she's had 3 KOs. Now, her last fight was a loss, and it was to American Jamie Mitchell, and that was in it was March 2020. No, sorry, October 2021. Now, this was all a bit complicated because at the time she was the bantamweight champion, so she was world champion. It was the fight where she beat Ebanie Bridges, who I talked about earlier. It was an incredible fight. Go on YouTube. Really, it's just full of attack right from the beginning. They are both covered in blood by the end. Sounds disgusting to say that, but it just gives you an idea of how aggressive that fight was. Shannon took away the win that night. However, she wasn't able to retain her belt because when she went to the weigh-in to fight Jamie Mitchell, she actually didn't make weight. She has said since that this was because of hormones. Obviously, women have it every month, and it must be an absolute nightmare. She wasn't able to make weight. She did everything that she could to make weight, didn't make it, so she was stripped of her belt. She went into that fight feeling rubbish, and she lost. Now, she also suffered injuries. So she's had 2 operations on her knee since then as well. She even did a show over here in the UK called SAS Here Des Wins. She didn't tell the producers that she'd hurt her knee, so it got worse. Anyway, it's led to this massive period of inactivity and just like building herself back up. And like I said earlier, it must be really strange for her on this card with Ebanie Bridges tomorrow. You know, Ebanie Bridges right at the top. You know, she's the supporting act, you know, and then you've got Shannon Courtenay much further down the card. That must feel really rubbish, and I want her to just build her way up. I really, really do. She has a great story into boxing as well. So she began really late. She was 22 when she started. She has said again very openly that she was very overweight. She smoked all the time. She drank a lot. She was very unhealthy and very miserable as well. Someone said to her, oh, you should go to a boxercise class to lose weight. So this wasn't like a boxing club. This was one of those ones where you just keep fit, where it's like more cardio. She went there and she said the first time she went there, it was absolutely awful. She went outside, she threw up, just to give you an idea of how, you know, unfit she was at the time. But someone came up to her and they said, actually, you were really good at punching in there. You should go to ABC Finchley. And she was like, what? But she went. She went to this amazing boxing club. And after the very first session, she woke up the next day at 6 a.m. and went for a run. She completely changed her diet. She threw her cigarettes in the bin. And 1 year later, she won an amateur gold. And she went pro 3 years after her first fight. And then literally 2 years after that became world champion. So you've got this great story of how actually she was just like, yeah, I'm good at this. And if I give up all of those things, I can become everything that I want to be. She says it saved her life, boxing, that it changed everything. It made her who she is today. She is a great fighter. Again, you know, all 4 women on this card are really come forward fighters. So I think we're in for like a really good night. If you tune into the female fights, I'm sure they're going to be really entertaining. She's chosen a tough opponent though. Gemma Rueg is not a walkover. And I think normally when you're building yourself back up, you might have chosen someone else. However, I think that just means it's going to be a great fight. So let's talk about Gemma. She is 37. Probably haven't heard as much about her, though she has been quite active. We last saw her on the Savannah Marshall Shields night. She fought Ginny Fuchs quite early on. She lost that fight, but previous to that, she had 2 wins in her previous 2 fights. She goes up and down in weights. She's never been stopped. She is powerful. Cool story as well. So she started with Taekwondo as a child. She's also tried a bit of MMA. And she also struggled with her mental health and addiction. And at 16, her family doctor suggested that she take up sports to try and help her with that. Now, the doctor probably meant, oh, you know, just go to the gym, work out. But instead, she went to a boxing gym, and well, it's lucky, she totally fell in love with it. Her boxing trainer became her husband in 2016, and she became two-weight world champion in the Quest Boxing League, and she won some regional titles. And when she won her regional title, she did that 10 weeks after having her sixth child. And she's also been known to get in the ring. I think the earliest was 3 weeks after giving birth. So Gemma is tough, really epic, quite incredible, I think. Now she went pro in 2021, and like I said earlier, she is 37, so she knows that she's come into this a little bit late, but she doesn't care. She wants to take every opportunity that she can. She wants to work her way up, and every time you see her, she is better. So again, I'm excited to see what she does. She's had 5 wins and 5 losses, so it's completely 50-50 at the moment. But do you know what? Like I said, this is quite a new thing. She's only been pro for a couple of years, so let's see how this is going. Also, what's quite cool, one of her sons, called Mace, he is a boxer as well, and he is on the Bournemouth boxer card next week, which I'm also going to preview. So yeah, just thought I'd just throw that in there. All right, so now let's move on to the next fight. We have James Metcalf versus Courtney Pennington of the USA. So let's go through this one. James Metcalf, he's 34. He has had 23 wins, 2 losses, and he's had 13 KOs. It's a pretty good score sheet. Now, he is the current WA Continental Champion, and he was the Commonwealth Super Welterweight Champion as well. That was in 2019. He challenged for the British title in March of 2021, but unfortunately he did lose that one. I'll tell you about his losses. So in October 2021, that was to Kieran Conway. He lost by a unanimous decision. And in March 21, that was the one where he challenged for the British title. That was against Ted Cheeseman. Great fight if you want to look it up. But there was a TKO in the 11th, which means he didn't take home that title. He went pro in 2011, and his dad is a boxer, JJ Metcalf. You might have heard of him. He was pro in 1992 to 2000, and he's just signed with Matchroom. The most recent fight he had was a win, that was in Spain, and it was only a couple of months ago, and that was where he won the WBA Continental title. That was against Kerman, I don't want to say his name wrong, Laraga. I'm sure it sounds cooler in a Spanish accent. So he has got his title now. However, I still think he has something to prove because of his recent losses. I would say this is him proving himself and getting back on that winning streak. So this is an important fight for him to win, I'd say, especially impressing Eddie at Matchroom and trying to make sure he's on these big cards. Now he is against Courtney Pennington from the USA. He's 36 and very confident. At the press conference, I was quite scared of him. Yeah, he's up for it. He's completely up for it. He's had 16 wins, 5 losses, 3 draws, and 7 of his wins have been via KO. Now this is the first time he's been in the UK. Now his last 2 fights, I don't know if you know much about him. So he won his last fight by unanimous decision. That was against Greg Benedetti. However, it's a good fight if you want to look it up. Pennington does actually get knocked down in the second, but he manages to bring himself back up and managed to win by unanimous decision. Now, there was a loss before that. That was in March, and that was to Vlad Panin, and it was a 5th round TKO. However, before that, the last 3 fights before that, they were all wins. So he's up to, I think he wants to prove something as well. They both kind of want to get back on this winning streak, which is why I think it will be a tough fight. He began boxing at 23 years old, so much later as well, which is maybe why you haven't heard as much about him. He had a really short amateur career, obviously. And he also had some promo issues. So he was with Star Boxing, and he was super inactive. It was like 1 fight a year, terrible promotion, wasn't getting any attention at all. He's now with a new promotional company, and he hopes that that's going to bring him up and he's going to be featured more. He is a good mover. If you look him up, look up his previous fights, very good behind the jab. So I think it's going to be a fun fight. they're both, you know, they both need that win, really. The favourite, though, if you want to bet, is obviously James Metcalf. Let's go on to the last fight that I'm going to preview for you of that card. So this is Callum French, and he is against Kurt Jackson. Now this is, I always like to mention these fights because these are the prospects, these are the ones you want to look out for, these are the ones where you're like, yeah, there's a future there and it's fun and it's cool to watch their career progress. So Callum French, he's 27. He's 3-0, and Kurt Jackson, he's 21, he's 3-0. So they are both right at the beginning of their career, and this is going to be an 8-round fight. And Callum French, you might know him. He was an amateur, a really good amateur. He won European bronze, and he was also famous because he had like a 35 fight winning streak. He's got so many medals for various different amateur events. He was in Team GB, but he didn't go to Tokyo because they took away his weight class. So what happened, it was the year where they tried to make it equal for men and women. So they took away 2 weight classes from the men and they put in 2 weight classes for the women. And annoyingly for Callum, it meant that his weight category, which was 60 kilograms, was taken away. He was number 1 at 60 kg though, so that's really irritating. And he was also ranked as number 8 amateur in the world. So yeah, really good prospect. That's why I'm talking about him right now, because he's probably going to go places. So he went pro in December 2021. So this has been his first year. His trainer, Graham Rutherford, actually began with him when he was only 11. So very sweet there. He's a really great counterpuncher. He also does cool charity stuff as well. He's an ambassador for a charity, what they called Changing Lives. And most recently, they built a gym for homeless people, which I think is really cool. Now he is facing Kurt Jackson. There is far less information on Kurt Jackson. You can barely find his fights on YouTube. But he's from Yorkshire. And again, this is right at the beginning of his career. He went pro literally 2 months before Callum did. So this is both their first year. However, the little clips I have seen, he's prone to letting his hands go, which I think means we're going to get an entertaining matchup. He's only ever fought in Leeds. And obviously this fight is in Leeds as well. So hopefully he's going to feel really comfy. Now the biggest thing about this is I said it's an 8-round fight. Now Kurt Jackson has had 3 fights, like I said, he's won them all on points, but they've been tiny. They've all been 4-rounders. Whereas Callum, he has had 2 6-round fights and 1 8-round fight. So, you know, Kurt Jackson really is just being chucked in here. You know, oh, can you just double what you did last time? But we'll see. I think that they're both really young, they're both really hungry, and they're both really up for it. So Callum French, I would say I'd pick him to win, but we'll see. So I hope you enjoy all of those fights tomorrow night. It's going to be live on DAZN. That is all across the world. And remember, it's wonky, weird times. So 2 p.m. the card starts and kicks off with Rhiannon Dixon. Then they're going to break at 7 for the football. Then they're going to come back at 9. And after 9, you'll see Felix Cash, Ebanie Bridges, and Josh Warrington. So tune in for all of it, you know, bits, all of it, whatever you want to do. It's a great day of sport. However, I don't know what that stadium's going to be like if England lose. But let's just hope they win, and then it's going to be a really epic night. All right, so join me again next week. I will be previewing probably the final fight of this year. Can't believe we're at Christmas already. And that is going to be the boxer card over in Bournemouth, where we are going to see Chris Billam-Smith back in action and the fabulous Caroline Dubois. So join me next week for another preview. Really hope you enjoyed tomorrow. If you like this video and if you find the previews useful, please hit like or subscribe and tune in next week. I'm always here 2 p.m. UK time on Talkin Fight with me, Holly Donovan. See you soon.